All right, let's jump right in. Artificial intelligence is literally everywhere, right? But pinning down exactly what we should actually be preparing for, well, that's a whole different ballgame. In today's explainer, we're going to demystify the completely wild, often overwhelming spectrum of AI risks.
So the big question right now, are we even worried about the right AI risks? It's a massive debate. Should we just be laser focused on the tangible stuff happening today? Job displacement, algorithmic bias? Or do we need to throw our resources at preventing these theoretical sci-fi doomsday scenarios of tomorrow? Well, today, we're flipping that coin and looking at both sides.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're looking at the new AI reality, present dangers and disruptions, ethics versus safety, the existential doomsday scenario, malice and the human factor, and racking up with governing the unknown.
Section 1. The new AI reality. To really grasp the risks, we got to look under the hood at how this tech is completely rewriting our digital infrastructure, our economies, and honestly, even how our governments run. Look, unlike traditional computing, where you have to give it explicit step-by-step instructions for every little thing, modern AI is different. It sifts through absolute mountains of data, learns from outcomes, and makes autonomous decisions with crazy precision. We're not just talking about an upgrade to your basic spreadsheets here. This is a ground-up redefinition of how information is processed across the entire public and private sector. Moving on to Section 2, Present Dangers and Disruptions.
Now, with all that immense capability comes some very immediate economic friction. 40%, let that sink in. The IMF estimates that 40% of jobs globally could be affected by AI, and it gets even more intense depending on where you look. They're projecting 60% of jobs in advanced economies will be impacted. That drops to 40% in emerging economies and about 26% in low-income countries. Sure, some folks are going to see huge productivity boosts, but the IMF also points out that roughly half of those impacted will actually be hit negatively through job displacement. Which really brings us to that age-old question. هل المال يشتري السعادة? Does money buy happiness? Because think about it. If AI generates just this unprecedented wave of corporate wealth, but kicks half the workforce to the curb, we're not just looking at an economic shift. We're looking at a massive crisis of human well-being.
And it's not just the private sector. The Policy Center actually flags 4 critical ways AI is going to quietly but fundamentally shake up our governments. First up, we've got a new language-based digital divide. Basically, countries that speak low-resource languages, meaning they don't have massive amounts of internet training data, they're just going to get left behind by these major AI models. Second is heavy job displacement right in public administration, which relies a lot on those clerical compliance tasks that AI can do in its sleep. Third, get ready for huge headaches in cross-border taxation when an autonomous AI system is doing business across 5 different borders simultaneously, figuring out where the value was created and who gets to tax it. Absolute nightmare. And lastly, a real decline in government responsiveness. If governments can't keep pace with all this AI-driven economic inequality, well, things could get pretty bumpy.
Section 3. Ethics versus Safety.
So while we're all grappling with these present-day headaches, there is a fierce, fascinating debate literally fracturing the AI community right now. In one corner, you have AI ethics. In the other, AI safety. AI ethics is mostly tackling the near-term, grounded issues, stuff like algorithmic bias, social justice, the chaos of misinformation from deepfakes, and even the massive carbon footprint of training these models. AI safety, on the flip side, is looking way down the road. They're focused on what happens when AI actually rivals human control, existential risks, misaligned superintelligence, that kind of thing. Scott Aronson, a leading expert in the field, actually compared this rivalry to that classic Monty Python sketch, the People's Front of Judea versus the Judean People's Front. Both camps desperately want a good outcome for humanity, but they are fiercely competing for the exact same spotlight and funding. All right, Section 4, the existential doomsday scenario. And this perfectly tees up what some critics in that AI ethics camp love to brush off as just a fantastical, adrenalizing ghost story, the whole existential doomsday scenario. But the really crucial takeaway here is just how insanely fast these timelines are shrinking. I mean, predictions for when we might hit AGI, artificial general intelligence, basically an AI that matches or beats human brain power across the board, those used to be decades, or even centuries away. Then, around 2020, highly respected models put AGI roughly 3 decades out. But today, after this massive generative AI boom, the timelines coming out of Silicon Valley are in freefall. A lot of top experts genuinely believe we could be looking at single-digit years. Single digits. Just listen to this quote from Geoffrey Hinton, who is widely considered one of the godfathers of AI. He said, "The possibility that digital intelligence will become much smarter than humans and will replace us as the apex intelligence is a more serious threat to humanity than bias." Now, he still firmly believes bias is an urgent issue that needs fixing, but his statement really puts the sheer scale and gravity of this existential risk perspective into sharp focus. That is a heavy thing to hear from the guy who helped build the very foundation of this tech.
Section 5. Malice and the human factor.
Now, whether we're stressing about immediate economic hits or some long-term Terminator scenario, there is one common denominator that bridges all of it. Us. Human misuse. Let's break this down by domain. In the digital space, the threat is automated hacking. We're talking about data poisoning, literally subtly corrupting the data an AI learns from, or just massive, perfectly tailored spear phishing campaigns. Then, in the physical domain, we have commercial repurposing. This is where bad actors take off-the-shelf tech and use it for things like drone swarms or autonomous weapons. It completely lowers the barrier to entry for causing real physical harm. And finally, the political domain. Here, the threat is social manipulation. Targeted propaganda, incredibly convincing deepfakes, tools that can completely nuke truthful public debate in democracies, or just supercharge surveillance states.
Which all builds to a pretty profound realization. There was this incredibly insightful piece from Al Jazeera that used the classic Arabic phrase, al-insan dhibl al-insan, man is a wolf to man. It just perfectly highlights that the true threat in the future, exactly like it's been for all of human history, is probably going to be a small group of humans using AI as a tool to just dominate everybody else. The AI itself isn't necessarily this malicious, evil actor. It's the human ally behind the keyboard, directing it for corporate, political, or military supremacy. That same article actually threw out this totally wild, fascinating philosophical concept, AI Alzheimer's. The author literally asked ChatGPT if having an infinite memory would be a curse, and if AI should actually have the capacity to forget. Think about it. If an AI literally never forgets and never makes a single mistake, it leaves zero room for human error, zero room for forgiveness. The idea behind AI Alzheimer's is a programmed selective memory, so the AI can actually evolve alongside us flawed humans, rather than just becoming this rigid, terrifying digital overlord that logs every single mistake you've ever made.
Bringing us to our final section, number 6, governing the unknown.
So, looking at both human malice and these completely unprecedented technological leaps, how on earth do we actually prepare? Well, the path forward is going to require some incredibly complex, non-technical maneuvering from our institutions. First, governments absolutely have to prioritize international cooperation on taxation. Otherwise, public revenue is going to collapse as AI just operates fluidly across borders. Second, we have to proactively mitigate this AI-driven economic inequality with real social safety nets. We have to ensure we're building a society optimized for actual human happiness, not just raw economic output. Which brings us right back to that core question, هل المال يشتري السعادة? Does money buy happiness? Third, to fight back against AI-automated hacking, we're going to have to deploy automated AI cyber defense systems, literally fighting fire with fire. And finally, governments have the monumental task of balancing rapid, mind-bending technological progress with democratic stability, making sure public trust in our institutions doesn't just completely evaporate. As we step back and look at this entire spectrum of AI risk, from losing our jobs tomorrow to the deeply philosophical dread of superintelligence next decade, we have to ask ourselves, will AI turn out to be our ultimate harmonious creation? Or is it just going to be a highly efficient, brand new weapon for our oldest human flaws? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the future.